welcome everybody to this session. This session we are going to talk about different networks and also the different community experiences in different parts of the world that work for socio-economic and also ecological justice. We will still have a few friends, a few speakers who will come in and speak, and then may have to leave for different sessions. We are very happy that we are having the speakers, but then we have half the speakers here. We have other speakers that are coming. And so I would like to request each speaker to speak for 15 minutes or less. But then first, please introduce yourself. So I would like to invite Gustave to introduce yourself and also to speak about his.
Thank you very much, Kinchi. I'm very glad to be here with Kinchi and Jane, and as usual, in the World Social Forum. And the Global University for Sustainability was in fact launched during this World Social Forum and is one of the results of the World Social Forum. So my name is Gustave Massiah. I am a member of this Global University and I am also a member of the International Council for a coalition of French Association of International Solidarity. And I am also a member of ATTAC, one of the founders of ATTAC. And Glauber, Sezerino, is the coordinator of the project that I will present to you, which name is Intercoll. So in fact, what is this project? Intercoll is the appellation of International Collective Intellectual of Social Movements. It was an idea that was launched in the World Social Forum of Ramallah in Palestine, and we were 3 members of the World Social Forum in Ramallah. One was Pierre Baudet from Montreal, myself, and the third one, which gave so many things to the World Social Forum, was Vinod Rena, who was from Bhopal. And we were thinking about how to renew the World Social Forum and how to build some space of the World Social Forum on internet. In fact, in the beginning, it was not on internet. In the beginning, we were discussing, and we start from a quotation of Gramsci. And Gramsci, you know, said that the organization form, the movement form, is the collective intellectual, to build a collective intellectual. And we thought that we need an international collective intellectual of social movements. This was the idea, and we begin to work on this in some countries, but unhappily, Vinod leaves us, is dead, and we stopped for some years because it was too hard. And we begin again 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, we decided with a young generation, a new generation of activists, to build a new form of this project. And so we built a site, a website. The website, the name of the website is intercoll.net. So you can go and on internet, and if you go to intercoll.net, you will see what is this website. The first idea of the website is to build a network of websites. Why a network of websites? Because at the beginning, when we began in Ramallah, we were thinking about a website of movements. And we have discussed with many movements. And we find it very difficult because, for example, we had a discussion with the MST in Brazil, and we asked the MST, do you agree to enter in a network of movements? They said yes. Wonderful idea. 1 year and a half after, we asked them, so, are you coming or not? They say, yes, we are coming, but we have to discuss in our international committee, so we will wait some. And so we understand that we cannot build a website, a network of movements. Because, in fact, we have seen that the culture of the networks of movements looks too much like the network of the international of parties. So we say, okay, we will not build a network of movement, we will build a network of websites. So we asked to MST, do you agree that your websites can be partner of Intercoll? They said, no, no problem. We send you the name of a correspondent and 5 lines and the link, and you are partner. And so we begin to build a network of websites. And the idea was, in 3, 4, or 5 years, we are in the long term, we hope to have something like 3,000 to 5,000 websites. Why? Because it is the condition to make an international network. And who are these websites? So it's not difficult. We know them. You know, in the World Social Forum of Tunis, we had 5,000 associations participating in the World Social Forum. So we have our website, that website of associations which are part of the World Social Forum, who should be in the World Social Forum. So this was the idea. This was our network. But we say, if we want really to have a new international intellectual collective, we have to make it in many languages. And so we start with 6 languages: English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic, and Mandarin. Right. So it's not easy, of course, because if we go too quickly, we will have English and French and Spanish. And we have to go quietly and to take time and to build this multi-language network. So the idea is how to build a multi-language network. And it is very important because the question is not the question of translation of words. The question is the question of translation of concepts, of notion. For example, if you want to build an intellectual collective, what is buen vivir? Buen vivir is a concept. Buen vivir is not live well. It is a new conception. So we have not to translate from one word to another, but to start for the building of concepts in the different cultures. So it's more difficult, but it's more fascinating, of course. And we have to open this multilingual to other languages. For example, we have some proposal, but we will take it in sometimes to have Turkish, Hindi, Urdu, and also German, Italian, and other languages. So this is the project. So you see, it's a very ambitious project. So how do we do now? If you go on the website, you will see that there is the partnership of the different websites. Presently, we have something like 100 websites of the world, but we are going very slowly, of course. And for each of these websites, we have the link, and we ask for each website to give us 1 or 2 articles. And we tell them, give us 1 or 2 articles per year. And then we translate the summary, and we have a first possibility to see what are the discussion. And then we open a new, comment on dit chantier, a new chronicle, a new rubric. And this new rubric is what we say, it was an idea of Vinod, it was the wall of questions. And Vinod said, okay, if somebody, anybody, who is linked with movements, send us just 3,000 characters and said, this is a question that social movements have to discuss. And how can they discuss it? So we will have a kind of political inquiry. And he say any questions, election, armed struggle, extractivism, culture, what question social movement have to discuss. So this is the first starting point. And if somebody from a movement, another movement, say, oh, I am interested by extractivism, we put them in link and they can work together. And if there is an existing group, working group, we can create a self-organized intellectual group. So they can open the discussion about this. But of course, it's not only the discussion of intellectual elaboration, because the discussion is also the question of mobilization and struggle. So we have another rubric in which we can give the proposal of the movements. For example, we have a working group on migration, and the working group of migration, he worked with the World Social Forum on Migration. The 8th one will be in Mexico in November, and so we put the proposal of the World Social Forum on Migration. And we have, like this, the question of elaboration and mobilization. And then after this, we begin to build some thematic groups. So we have, for the moment, approximately 14 thematic groups on questions coming from this wall of questions. For example, one of the this group is religion and emancipation, with two entries in this group. One is the Islamic question, and the other is theology of liberation. And these questions are questions discussed in the World Social Forum. We have a forum of theology of liberation here in this forum, and we have also the question of Islam and who is discussed by many other people. So we have these groups. For these groups, what we tell them, we are not building academic groups. We are building social movement groups. So how do we do? For example, if I start from migration, we start from a first point. This is the question on the walls. That's why social movements have to discuss on migration and how can they deal with it. And then when we have this proposal that could be renewed, of course, when we have this proposal, at this moment, we built a small group who look at websites working on this. And the working group can begin when he have websites from at least 3 big regions or continents. For example, for the migration groups, they have approximately 20 websites Sin Fronteras in Latin America, in the Philippines, in the Maghreb, in South Africa, and so these groups, this is a group. And then what we ask to the group, first, if they have mobilization, they can send information and discussion about the mobilization. For example, the migration group is working on session of the permanent people tribunals on migrations. And also, we ask to the group to identify and to choose 1 article per month, not so much. They discuss. This is an article that make advance the question. And we put it on the site. Okay. And the idea is that we start from the discussion about what, this is the aim of Intercoll, to build an international thinking of social movements. How to build the international dimension of strategy for the social movement. And so then they choose this group, and 1 per year they make a synthesis that can be discussed. So you see, it's very simple. It's not an university. It's just social movement working groups. And also, we are launching now an inquiry of the strategy of social movements. We ask social movement 3 questions. First question, how do you adapt your strategy to the new situation? And the second question is, what is the international dimension of your strategy? And the third one is, do you think that we can build a common international strategy for social movements? This is our idea of the renewal of the whole social forum.
Boa tarde a todos e a todas.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Vou procurar ficar dentro do tempo e dentro do assunto que está proposto.
We're going to try to stay in time and the subject.
Sou do Movimento Sem Terra do Brasil.
I work with the MST, the movement of people without land, without, I don't know how to translate in English. MST.
Nós iniciamos a nossa atuação em 1984.
We begin our political action in 1984 in Brazil, 1984.
A nossa ação comunitária foi juntar os descendentes de escravos, descendentes africanos, descendentes europeus, para... Sim. para buscar se juntar para resolver um problema da nossa exclusão nessa sociedade.
Our community action, the beginning of our action is try to reassemble the descendants of slaves, descendants of European people that came here in the late 19th century, to try to put together all this kind of population to work with our problems, the most important, like land, the access to the land.
A nossa primeira ação comunitária foi ocupar o latifúndio que nos impedia o acesso à terra.
So our first action was to occupy the little big farms, occupy the plantations that don't allow us to have this right, there is the access to the land.
E criamos até o atual momento mais de 1.000 assentamentos.
And just at that time we had created already over 1,000 occupations, 1,000 assentamentos.
Mais de 1 milhão de famílias foram assentadas.
More than 1 million families have now access to the land, work in the land.
Destas, 800.000 no governo Lula e Dilma.
Between them, 800,000, I think so. 800,000 families in the last government, Lula Dilma.
E buscamos dar uma organização interna dentro desses assentamentos.
And we try to give internal organizations to these assentamentos. So we work with them to create an internal organization.
Iniciamos organizando cooperativas e associações desses produtores rurais.
And so we create cooperatives, I don't know how to translate, cooperatives and associations of producers in these assentamentos.
Entendemos que a ação coletiva da luta pela terra, ela tem que continuar após o assentamento.
We understand that the community actions must continue. The community actions that is translated in the fight for the land must continue after these people have access to the land. So that's why we work with them to organize them.
Entendemos que não existe uma saída nessa área do ponto de vista individual, por isso buscamos a organização associativa.
We understand that there is no out of this problem individually. The only route to exit this problem, the only solution to this problem is collectively. So that's why we work with them to create this collectiveness. Sorry.
E no acesso à terra nós entendemos nesse momento novo conceito de reforma agrária.
We need a new concept on the agrarian reform.
Entendemos de
We
que
understand that
a reforma agrária apenas como uma distribuição de terra não faz mais sentido hoje.
we understand that the agrarian reform only as a distribution of land no longer makes sense.
Estamos pensando novo sistema de produção agrícola, diferente do que foi a Revolução Verde.
We are now thinking on a new system of
A Revolução Verde. Outro sistema além da Revolução Verde.
another system beyond the Green Revolution.
Entendemos de que simplesmente o processo de distribuição de terra não resolve o nosso problema.
We understand that the process of giving land no longer can solve our problems.
E estamos construindo novo sistema de produção na agricultura brasileira.
And we are building a new production system on the Brazilian agriculture.
Estamos organizando nesses assentamentos um sistema de produção agroecológica.
We are producing on those places a new,
Agroecológico.
no, on a-
Sistema.
a new agroecological system.
Entendemos de que esse sistema não é apenas uma técnica agrícola, mas um novo sistema de vida.
We understand that this agriculture system is not just a system, but a way of life.
Para que nós tenhamos na humanidade um olhar diferente sobre o planeta Terra.
So we can have on mankind a new look over the planet Earth,
Que leva em consideração as gerações futuras e a vida do planeta.
that takes into consideration the new generations and the life planet.
E nesse sentido, a agroecologia corresponde a esse novo sistema de produção de alimento e um sistema de vida da humanidade.
And on this new way, we understand that agroecological represents a system that
De vida.
não, sistema que representa um novo meio de vida para
A sociedade, a humanidade.
that represents a new way of life for society.
Entendemos que o atual modelo está levando a uma catástrofe o planeta.
We understand that the current model is taking the planet to an imminent catastrophe,
E que nos sucumbimos todos juntos.
and we will all fall.
Ok. Para isso, precisamos pensar uma coisa diferente, no qual a sociedade inteira esteja envolvida.
And for that, we need to think about a new system where the whole society is involved.
E uma das grandes mudanças nesse momento é a produção de alimentos.
And one of the big changes at this point is the production of food, of elements.
Os alimentos que nós nos alimentamos hoje é baseado em venenos.
The food that we eat today, it's based on poison.
Isto é o fim da humanidade.
That is the end of mankind.
Estamos buscando então um sistema que dê continuidade da natureza e do ser humano.
So we are seeking a new system that can provide the continuation of life to mankind and to the planet.
E ele tem uma função importantíssima numa reforma agrária.
And has a very important role on a agrarian reform.
A reforma agrária muda então de conceito.
So the agrarian reform changed his concept.
Não é apenas uma distribuição de terra.
It's no longer a distribution of lands.
É uma luta da sociedade
It's a struggle of society
para distribuir a terra
to distribute the land
e produzir os alimentos saudáveis à humanidade.
and produce the health foods to society.
Portanto, é uma luta pela terra e uma luta política.
Therefore, is a fight for land and a political fight.
Que não pode envolver apenas os que não têm terra, mas a sociedade como um todo.
And has to bring not only those that does not have lands, but society as one.
No dia de amanhã nós vamos iniciar uma grande colheita.
Tomorrow we will begin a big harvest.
Vamos iniciar a colheita de arroz agroecológico no Rio Grande do Sul.
We will start a harvest of agroecological rice on the south of the country.
No ano passado colhemos 500 mil sacas de arroz agroecológico.
Last year we harvested 500,000 sacks of rice, of agroecological rice.
E nesse ano buscamos superar essa cifra.
And on this year, we seek to overcome last year's numbers.
Isso está se tornando uma referência para nós no Brasil, a produção agroecológica nos nossos assentamentos.
That is becoming a reference to us here in Brazil, to a última parte,
É uma referência agroecológica nos nossos assentamentos.
and becoming an agroecological reference on our sites.
E nesse sentido, a sociedade inteira tem que se envolver nesse processo.
And on that sense, the entire society has to be involved on this process.
Porque o nosso problema de sem terra não é apenas agora a terra.
Because our problem of people that doesn't have a land is not just that,
É produzir o novo.
it's to product the new.
É aquele que dá continuidade à vida.
It's what makes possible the life goes on.
Portanto, essa é uma luta da sociedade humana.
Therefore, that's the fight of human society.
Porque não adianta os europeus impedir que seja aplicado veneno lá, porque são aplicados no Brasil e depois o alimento segue para lá.
So it doesn't matter if the Europeans stop the use of poison there on their lands, because the poison will be used here, and from here it will be exported to there.
A integração dos mercados de alimentos hoje não dá garantia a ninguém que o seu alimento seja saudável.
The integration of the world food market does not give a guarantee that your food is actually clean and healthy.
Nós louvamos a atitude da França de impedir a produção com glifosato.
We praise the attitude of France to stop the productions of
Glifosato.
glyphosate.
Porque ele está sendo aplicado em grande quantidade no Brasil, na África e em outros países produtores de alimentos.
Because being used in huge amounts in Brazil, in Africa and other continents.
E esses alimentos são exportados para o mundo inteiro.
And those foods are being exported through the entire world.
Então, de maneiras que essa mudança num pensamento de reforma, ele tem que ser no mundo inteiro.
So the changing on the thinking, on the ways of thinking, the reform has to be global.
E nós estamos empenhados nisso.
And we are working on it.
E além da luta pela reforma agrária, estamos também trabalhando sempre a solidariedade entre os povos.
And beyond our fight to the agrarian reform, we are so fighting for the solidarity between people.
E nesse momento quero destacar 3 lugares aonde nós estamos prestando solidariedade.
And at this moment, I would like to highlight 3 places that we are using solidarity.
A Palestina, a Venezuela e o Haiti.
Palestinians, Venezuela and Haiti.
Então nós entendemos de que os problemas hoje do capitalismo não têm fronteira.
So we understand that the problems of capitalism doesn't have borders.
E a nossa solidariedade também não pode ter fronteiras.
And neither can our solidarity.
Obrigado.
Thank you very much.
My name is Sadaharu Oya. I think the Japanese name is very difficult to pronounce. And at first, I must apologize because I have no time to prepare the document. Before yesterday, Kinchi captured me in the opening march, and she asked me to speech at this event. So I have no draft, only the memorizing, and also I'm not the community development researcher. I'm not the researcher of community development. I'm the researcher of political economy in Japan. So I want to introduce the more broader situation of Japan and some point of the social struggles in Japan. So, but at first I want to introduce one article from the New York Times. This article published on March 20th. This article said that Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan offered to resign a year ago if evidence emerged linking him to a sweetheart land deal. No such evidence ever surfaced, allowing him to ride out the scandal and hang on to power. But a government report released on Monday, this Monday, suggests that some crucial evidence may have been deleted, and that has put Mr. Abe back in the hot seat. An internal investigation by the Finance Ministry concluded that unidentified officials tampered with official documents related to the land deal by deleting references to Mr. Abe's wife and senior members of his party. So I think at this event, not so many Japanese come here because political situation is very difficult to go freely abroad. It is one example. We don't believe that official document tampered, but this is a reality of our political situation. Following that, for more than a year, Mr. Abe has deflected persistent allegations that he and his wife were involved in the Arkan scandal involving an improper public land sale at a sleepy discounted price to an ultra-conservative education group. Despite repeated calls from opposition lawmakers for broader investigation, Mr. Abe won a commanding majority in parliament last fall, which put him in position to become the country's longest-serving leader. But on Monday, the Finance Ministry submitted an 80-page report to the governing Liberal Democratic Party, admitting that ministry bureaucrats had deleted portions of 40 documents related to the land sale, including one containing the name of Mr. Abe's wife, Akie Abe, and her alleged remarks. And this political problem has 2 points. One is the linkage. Who is linked with this land sale? This land is for the private education kindergarten. But this kindergarten is very special. The president of this kindergarten wanted to praise the Tennoism, or what you say, the militaristic, fascistic ideology before the World War II. So he taught his kindergarten child to praise the state, to praise Abe Prime Minister, and so on and so on. Why we know that before the Second World War, the Japanese political system and ideology was very undemocratic. But interestingly, in the private schools, the many educators, ultra-conservative educators, begins to propagate That's I think reciprocal conservative ideology. And second thing, why this problem officialized? I think some offices of government informed to the one what you say newspapers company, but in the course of that information, the one officer suicide in the last week. I think it is the one form of the protest, but the suicide is very it is a very Japanese symbol of the social situation. We cannot mobilize the mass movement, so many people die themselves. It is very critical situation for us, so I must introduce at first, this is the reality of my country. So I will short introduce about the structure, our social structure in my country, especially after the World War II. I think one is from the political dimension and the other is the economic dimension. One, the political dimension. We have three principles of our state. It is I and Muto-san, who is my great mentor of social movement in Japan. And we think that the Japanese state structure has three principles. One is the nostalgia of Japanese militaristic, fascistic ideology. It is since after the World War II, the residue continues very strongly inside our society. One of the symbol is our Article 9 of our Constitution. Our Article 9 said that the emperor is symbol of state and unity of the people. I don't say what is the symbol of the unity people. I can't understand, but this is the residue of the Japanese militaristic past. And Mr. Prime Minister Abe has cross-linked with these ideologies. The second is US and Japan Security Alliance. It is since after the Second World War, Japanese government lost their forces. Instead, the US military bases seem to be protected to our country. I don't think so, but the treaty is writing that point. So Japan and the United States integrated into the Cold War system, and still we have living in that system, especially in the face of the North Korean nuclear development problem. But that problem involves many what you say communal or community levels problems. One is the example is that Okinawa. Okinawa is very small island south of Japan. Very small island, but 70% of United States base concentrated in this island. So I think last month helicopter or the airplane dropped in the kindergarten of the Okinawa of Okinawa. Fortunately, no one killed, but the Okinawa people demanded stop the U.S. military forces activity. But U.S. military don't accept that, and Japanese government don't accept the Okinawa people's demand. Why? Why? Because the Japanese government has strictly, very strongly leaned to this United States security alliance. It is like a second constitution. It is not the national constitution, but this is the second constitution. So Okinawan people think we have no human rights on the basis of the Japanese constitution. And the third point, I think it is more positive that our constitution has Article 9, which renounces any forces, any war potential, and the people of Japan will not accept belligerency. This is a very curious article, because I think the United States, when the United States Army occupied our country, they thought that the Japanese government should not hold any forces. But we have 70 years of this constitution. The social movements of Japan is converged on this issue to protect our constitution of Article 9, because we don't want, never invade other nations. But these three constitutional principles are, what you say, very contradictory, in a contradictory relation. So depending on the balance of power, some principle goes in front of the situation. This is the political situation. Then the economic situation is more simple. Our society has two principles. One is society of a big corporation. Our labor movement very weak. I think so. Because in 1960s, 1970s, we had a boom, economic boom, but why the labor movement was crushed by big corporations. So the largest national center of labor movement is, what you say, very compromised with the big corporations' policies. So this is one side. And second side is the community development style led by the state government. So the Japanese community, especially in the rural areas, many peasants went outside from these areas in 1960s, 1950s to get the employment in the city. But many people, the rest of the agriculture peasant rest in that area. But the agriculture situation is very weak. So many peasants are demanded the fund from the government. So state government funding, especially the construction industry, and the many peasants have to work. In the summer, they work as a peasant. In the winter, they have no work of agriculture, but they went to the construction industries to get money to their children to go to school. So this second dimension is very crucial because the rural area or the rural area is strongly dependent on the government. So what is happening now? We had in 2011 Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant disaster because of we had the East Japan earthquakes. At that point, after this earthquake, Japanese people elect the current Prime Minister Abe. I think they are very, I think they have the what you say, fear of the disordering the country. So they want to erect the strong leadership. And Abe is a very authoritarian politician. So they elected this person in 2012. So Abe promoted many things. Economy policy, Tokyo Olympic Games, promoting Tokyo Olympic Games, US-Japan Security Alliance reinforcement, and so on. But that government is now wanted, I think, three objectives. One is to regularize overtime work. They wanted change the labor law. This is one discussion point of this diet in this January. The second point is what you say, restart of Fukushima nuclear plant. Why they want to restart? One is because of the economic problem, I think. The big corporation want to restart the nuclear energy plant. But the other side, these nuclear plants are should imply that the potential to make nuclear nuclear weapon by the Japanese government. Abe had Abe's father is a politician. Abe's uncle was ex-prime minister of Japan in 1970s. And his uncle said that nuclear power plant is the potential of self-defense nuclear weapon for our country. So I think Abe government wanted to restart the nuclear power plant. And third problem is the restoring the fascistic or militaristic ideology in our country through the education, and the scandal is one of the symbols. So this is a broad situation. So, but in Japan we have many struggle or protests. For example, my friends are living in Tokyo. I think in the front of Diet, they are protesting every day in this week. Every day. To demand resignation of Abe, Prime Minister Abe. But in the countryside, we have many protests also. For example, dozens of lawsuits against the restarting of nuclear power plants in Fukushima area and other area which have the nuclear power plant. There is one report said that the tsunami of lawsuits against the nuclear power plant erupted in our country, in Japan. But one difficult point is how to articulate these struggles, especially in the political dimension. The main problem is how to unify the political expression. LDP party is not so strong, I think. Only 30% of voters support the Abe's government. But there's other 70% voters, where to go? Opposition parties are very divided by the, I think, anti-communist sentiment and the problem of US-Japan alliance. Last year, the main opposition party was divided before the election, before the 2 days before the election started. Why? The opposition leader wants to preserve the US alliance. So they want opposition people, oppositional movement absorbed into this policy. But some politicians divided, make other political party, and we have studied how to create a political expression between many discriminated areas, Okinawa, Fukushima, rural areas, and also in Tokyo we have the many problems. Reconstruction for the Olympic Games purged many people from their old apartments. We studied now, and I don't think we will win or not. I don't think, I don't have never, I'm not a prophet, but I think as one citizen, I and my fellow will continue this struggle. Thank you. Sorry.
Rajendra Singh, I came from India, that is a desert area of India called Rajasthan. But with me, more than dozens, my senior colleagues and friends sitting here, Sudarsan Das, Deepak and Kishore, Narendra Chowk, Sudhir Rathod, Aniket Lohiya, Malik. So they are doing in a different way, in a different pupils movement in my country. But now the movement on focus on water conservation and river rejuvenation. And some youth movement leading by Professor Snehal Donde. She is working in Maharashtra and Mumbai. So the different type of the movement, and the all movement, we made a forum called a Jal Biradari, the water brotherhood or water sisterhood. That forum working in the all over the country. Basically this movement start in 35 years before, when the pupils is migrating, the forced migration in my country in the desert area without water. Nobody living without water in the Rajasthan. So that time the indigenous knowledge system or Indian wisdom, we start the water conservation there. And the river is before die and dead. So the rejuvenation of the river is start in my country. So now I can say today the 11 small river who is die and dry before, now they are rejuvenating and flowing with water. But the important thing is, because when the water come, so the people start the agriculture. The beginning they start the agriculture, the commercial agriculture, but finally we made a river parliament. And my river parliament decide, no, we not allow the commercial agriculture in this region. So they make a agriculture, the agriculture adaptation practice they start. And the agriculture adaptation practice, due to that practice, we change the climate change and we start the climate change adaptation there. Due to that, the organic or natural farming There now is the good rains coming in Rajasthan, where I start the work in 35 years before, and the pupil is reverse migration, lot of reverse migration. After this experience, my team told me, Rajendra bhai, now is the war, third world war is coming in this planet, because the scarcity of the water and the reason of the drought and flood increasing. So this dangerous landscape, this dangerous landscape calling the climate change and the rain pattern is change. So the migration, forced migration is start. So my first journey start from Syria. The Syria, the Turkey called me for the address the ministers of the water resource, and the topic is what is the way we can combating the desertification. So the combating desertification in Turkey, Ankara, I visit in the month of October, and the UN called me what is the way we can make some reverse migration in Syria. You know that Syria is the oldest agriculture country in this world. Before the India, the 2000 years before agriculture started in Syria. But now the Euphrates River is die because the Turkey made the 6 large dam on that river, and the water is not flowing in Syria. So the people is migrating without water. So we start from Turkey, Syria and Iraq, and after that we make a focus on Central Asian country, 20 Central Asia country, and the 20 is African countries where the migration is start. I hand over the one book to you. Now the change the dangerous landscape, creating the forced migration, and that migration moving toward to Europe. Now the Europe is really very much worried of this due to this migration, and they are making a plan for the urban future, and they are really bothered. So now is a real movement for the fighting against the Third World Water War, and the Indian only believe in the non-violence way, and the Indian believe on peace. So we start a water peace. So this is the name of the movement of the water peace. This water peace movement now is working where the people is doing the forced migration. So, but you know, the government policy is also today is still against the nature and against the humanity. But this people's movement only believe and respect on the equal respect of nature and equal respect of the humanity. So this is this water peace movement give the equal respect to the humanity and equal respect to the nature. So this movement now start from India, and now this movement is going on in some country of the Central Asia, where due to the forced migration and the desert and flood. But you know, my country now is facing lot of problem. I know the problem, what we are saying, the development. This development start with entry point is the destruction and displacement, and finally reach on disaster. So this type of the problem is also facing, but this water and peace movement give the real rejuvenation of the nature and the village reconstruction. And due to the village community, we start in Rajasthan when 35 years the river rejuvenation and water conservation only with the community driven decentralized water management. We never take this people's movement, never take any support from any government and not take any support from any corporate. We are always fighting against the corporate, because the corporate creating the encroachment on the common properties and pollution, and finally they are extracting the water underground aquifers. So this water and peace movement is going on now, and why we came here, more than couple of dozens from India, because we are thinking this social movement when it start in 97. So after that, the India is a very good forum in 2004. So that time more than millions people gathered there. But now I not seen this spirit in this movement. So why this movement lose that spirit? I not understand, and I not understand because I'm going lot of meetings and sittings, but I not seen this is that spirit when the social forum have the spirit in 2004. So we are thinking we start a new something new for the river rejuvenation and the river forum. The river forum need, because the river have no right. The river everywhere where we are our engineers want, they create a dam and river is dying. Due to the large dam, the all river is going dying in this world. So we start now thinking a river forum. You can give some time, and Mr. Sudarsan can explain the river Mahanadi. Mahanadi is a national river in my country, but the corporate made a dams and they are taking water on the ownership of the water of that. So this type of the crisis we are facing in our country, but the people's movements is very strong. Everywhere, in every state we are fighting for the river conservation and river rejuvenation, and all work depend on the community. We are not believe on this power. The power is always corrupt, and the power is making corruption to the surrounding. So we are fighting against the corrupt power, and we rejuvenate the people and we rejuvenate the rivers. So this is the movement. If you allow and you can give some time, so 2-3 minutes he can speak in Odisha, the east part of my country, and he can Aniket can speak something in Central Asia and in Maharashtra, and Kishore Dharia can speak some Marathwada and some different part. 2 to 3 minutes if you allow, if you have time. So Sudarsan can start.
So friends, greetings from India, and you know India is a land of Mahatma Gandhi, who is famous for a concept that is called non-violence. And his concept of non-violence, the movement around non-violence, has attracted the attention of the whole world. I think those who know the bit of Mahatma Gandhi, they know the kind of movement or concept that he has given to the world. From that land, from India, I, on behalf of the team, those who have come here, I express my warm greetings to all of you, all the delegates present here. And the person to whom you listen, he is called as the waterman of India. He is the person has rejuvenated 7 rivers in our country. A country where there is a desert like that of Sahara, like that of in Brazil. There is a place called Rajasthan. In that deserted area, he the person rejuvenated 7 rivers, and that's why he is called as waterman of India. And with him we have around 9 delegates. He has also got the Magsaysay award, one of the prestigious awards in the world, and he has got the Nobel in water also. He has got it. So to his credit, he has been recognized by all section of the people as a kind of water warrior who is fighting for the cause of water conservation as well as preserving and conserving the rivers. As you know, the rivers across the world are facing challenges of their existence. May it be China, or be it rivers in US or India or Middle Asia, Anywhere you say the rivers are in danger, and he is the person, he is articulating his concerns and the concerns of the world about preserving the rivers. He is with us and along with our team members. Just coming here, before coming here, we are discussing, our delegation from India, we are discussing about the importance of this kind of a networking. Thank that you have invited us here to share our ideas. But before coming here, we are concerned, our delegation from India, we are concerned that the kind of World Social Forum came up in 2000, before 2004, the spirit and the kind of impact that it used to create across the globe. Gradually we saw that there is a collapse in that. There is a lack of that intensity that it has created earlier. But now this networking that you are discussing about on concepts, networking about among the movements across the world, I think is now the paramount importance, that those who are involved in different kind of movements at different countries and places also, we need to be connected. The kind of concerns that you were raised, sir, about Brazil and the people's land rights, and also about agricultural system that you talked about, the kind of thing that in China also people are encountering is they pertaining to smog and pertaining to world sustainable life and living across the world. The kind of things are happening. There are four major things we are encountered with. One, that is inequality. It's growing like anything across the world, including my country. The inequality is now in that kind of a proportion, perhaps human society didn't experience prior to it in 21st century. And number two is the kind of unsustainable economic processes we are following, economic order we are following. That is also a danger that is posed in the form of climate change, in the form of unsustainability in many other aspects. That's number two. Number third, in our context, in Indian context, social injustice. Our society is different from yours. We have a huge diversity. From one place to another place you travel, you will find there is diversity in dress, diversity in food, diversity in language, diversity in thinking, in every respect. But that diversity is now under attack in our country. That is one of the agenda that, like in Japan that you are saying, in India also we are now facing that the diverse opinion, the diverse way of life is now being attacked by some forces which want one nation, one country, one concept, that's like we see in India today. So we are also fighting against that. And then another thing is the sustainability aspect also is most important, for which we are fighting for preservation of rivers, for rejuvenating rivers, for protecting water. So all those things also, we have come here with a background or with some work along with our periphery on different aspects. Question of equality, question of social justice, question of sustainability, and question of respecting or tolerating diversity. So on all those 5 aspects, we all are, those who have come here, we come here with the representation of that kind of a concept. And now we think with this forum that you have created today, I think we will be very happy if our movements in India, if could be connected with the rest of the world on these 5 aspects, we'll be very happy. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to share my views in front of you.
As you heard from Rajendra Singh ji,
Actually, I am not familiar to speak in English, but this is the first time I am speaking in English. Please understand me. I am from one NGO called Manavlok, and it is working in Marathwada area of Maharashtra. Actually, in my area, we forced to go for sugarcane cutting. From my area, around 7 to 10 lakh people from my district, not my area, from my district, out of 25 lakh people, 7 to 10 lakh people, they migrate for seasonal work as a sugarcane cutter. It is because of lack of rain, lack of water. And from last several years, in the guidance of Mr. Rajendra Singh ji, we are working for how to harvest water, how to percolate water in aquifers, how to save our fertile land. Thank you very much.
Good evening, friends. My name is Narendra Chowk. I come from India as a part of delegation which is going to attend World Water Forum after having attended this World Social Forum. Dr. Rajendra Singh ji has received his Nobel Prize, Stockholm International Water Prize in 2015. We have been mentored by him to work in areas which are very drought prone. You know, in my country, out of 6 lakh villages, 6 lakh small villages in my country, 2,35,000 villages have contaminated water or maybe no water at all. So floods and droughts are the main problems afflicting my country, and as mentioned by earlier speakers, because of these floods and droughts, large populations have to migrate towards the cities, and because of this migration to the cities become unlivable and unsustainable. So to stop this migration, we were mentored to follow the river basin approach. By adopting a small stream, we have to study the entire river basin of that stream. There are 3 simple principles that were taught to us by him. One principle is that whatever water rainfall that happens, the water is gushing away in great speed. So you try to reduce the speed of that water by creating small check dams, small stone boulder dams and similar structures to reduce the speed of the water which is gushing down through the hillsides and the higher ridges. The moment you reduce the speed of the water, allow it to stand, and because the standing water has got some time, it percolates into the ground and the groundwater gets recharged. Once the groundwater gets recharged, the evaporation losses don't happen. Because the evaporation losses don't happen and my groundwater gets recharged, the populations are now dependent on the groundwater. Initially, what used to happen is the water used to rush down the river basin ridges, and they used to carry the soil also. So this soil got deposited in the small check dams and in the small streams, and the flood-like situation got created. Because of the landscape designing in those areas, we have been successfully able to rejuvenate 2 streams. Now this work is not a technical work. The villagers are motivated. Rather than being motivated, the communication happens with the villagers and we seek solutions from them. We believe that the villagers have indigenous, local wisdom for water conservation. So they know the problems of that local area as well as the solutions on that. The moment we facilitate all this, they are ready to get into works which are important for water conservation. Now this is community driven, decentralized water management work. You know, it is against the, I mean, it is opposite or opposite corollary of large dams. Large dams try to store water in one place, and then that water, stored water, is used as a weapon and to destroy the communities. So this method of creating small streams which are rejuvenated, and by recharging the groundwater, the decentralized and community driven, that means the community itself is coming around to solve their problems. So there is empowerment of the community, and this is the first time in 2015 Dr. Rajendra Singh ji received this award of water conservation because he involved the communities in doing this work. It has been the history of Stockholm International Water Prizes that mostly the prizes are given to engineers who have executed large dam projects, or here with the communities being channelized, their energy is being channelized, and rejuvenating 7 rivers without taking single rupee from the government, single dollar from the governments. It is all community driven work, it is all community work. This is what is the work that has been done, and we strongly believe that this decentralized work is empowering the communities at the grassroots level, and when they get empowered, they are willing to take upon the large mighty governments and seek and take their rights in their own hands. That's all. Thank you.
Myself, Uddhab Pyakurel. I am from Nepal, so northern part of Kathmandu. Those who are familiar with, but those who are not familiar with Nepal, Nepal is between China and India. So after having listened from very many Indians just before, I felt like I can talk a bit about kind of reflection I have. I was requested to speak about Nepal's experience for socio-economic and ecological justice. That is what I am a bit prepared for this. I teach political sociology at Kathmandu University. Also I am part of social movement because we had last week we had Nepal Social Forum, and then from that forum I directly flew to Brazil to attend this global forum. Having said that, though I think it is very difficult for countries like Nepal to speak in a global forum, because very many people may have a bit idea and many may not have. So Nepal, once we talk about socio-political kind of thing, as my Japanese friend started doing, Nepal was considered till recently a conservative country, because we were having Hindu king, and even we had state religion as Hinduism. Very many people like it, very many may not have kind of this opinion about this. That is why we are having 7th constitution now, and this very constitution came along with couple of movements. These were political movements. Our democracy movement was also on and off. We had democracy, though we are one of the oldest countries in South Asia as far as independence is concerned. We were never colonized, and we are the oldest, one of the oldest countries in the globe. But as far as democracy is concerned, as I told you, in the first time in history we had democracy in 50. Then again after 10 years there was no democracy. We had absolute monarchy for 30 years. Then again we had democracy in 1990 along with this new wave of democracy. But after a while we had this Maoist insurgency. kind of extremist left movement. And that also survived in Nepal at least for 1 decade. And since 2006, we are having dialogue, negotiation, constitution making process. We had big change, in fact, after 2006. We converted Nepal or transformed Nepal at least into 4 very big themes. For example, from monarchy to republic, from Hindu to secular country, from very high caste dominant society to kind of plural or kind of inclusive society, and even from unitary Nepal to federal. We have now 7 federal provinces. We just had an election maybe 2-3 weeks back. We completed election. We have new prime minister. These are the political situation. As far as social situation is concerned, we are also as diverse as other countries. Maybe one of my friends from India was saying we are also diverse. Yes, Nepal is also diverse. We are not a small country. Since we are between Nepal, China and India, big giant, that is how people say that we are a small country. But globally, we are, I think, 40th out of 200. So we are fairly a medium country in the world. And out of that, we have 125 ethnic groups recognized now, 129 linguistic and different dialects we recognize in Nepal. So you see, in a new democracy, it is very difficult to deal with the kind of diversity we have. Sometimes it is strength, but sometimes it becomes weakness if you have no leadership with wise vision and etc. I think that is what is lacking. But sometimes this global narrative also help countries like us to detour from our own tradition and culture. Why I am saying so is, for example, we are termed, Nepal, even India was like this till recently, by this global institution that we are the least developed country, LDC. And that is what is the psyche for people like Nepal who try to interact with global. Oh, you are from Nepal, least developed country. Oh, you have to develop. This is kind of parameter they develop and they try to look at. Recently, I think 2-3 days back, I was going through this global happiness index. That very index was introduced by a tiny country in South Asia, Bhutan, and now I try to look at Bhutan where it is figuring out in that very global indicator, and I could find it in 97th position. So this is Bhutan's idea. Let Bhutan try to enlist based on its own indicators it has developed. But again, that very idea is being hijacked by these global institutions and try to look from their own perspective. That is why Bhutanese idea, but Bhutan is on the 97th position. That is what is happening globally. I think that very points has to be considered while we talk about this. That is as far as this social and kind of social justice concerned, I think for Nepal also, you see, till recently we were a peaceful country. Yes, there were many problems. For example, my Indian friend tried to hint, yes, definitely we are different society, at least in South Asia, which couple of phenomena are very new, which can't be understood by outsiders. For example, caste hierarchy we have. For European and for others, it is very difficult to understand. Oh, how could you identify which caste who is? But for us, it is very easy. We can easily, 90% correctly, we can identify someone which caste he belongs to. So this is our own problem. Sometimes it is strength, sometimes it is weakness. But once we try to see from global perspective, we find many problems. And that is why today, I think it is the case for very many global South countries, including South Asian countries. A global view on us help us to see ourselves in a different way. That is why today Nepal's very agenda is kind of stability, development and prosperity. That was the very popular slogan in the recent election in Nepal. What is development for us nowadays? It is very interesting. It has been monopolized by few elites. If you talk to even grassroots people, Dalit, those who are landless, those who are daily wage laborers, everyone is happy to mention that, oh, we need development. But they don't realize that that very development we try to promote will snatch their job, will snatch their food sovereignty, will snatch their natural resource, for example, water resource and forest resource, and help this middle and upper class to grow more. That is how this disparity will be further strengthened. But they are saying that, oh, development is needed. What kind of development we are doing today in Nepal or in other countries? I think it is similar to. For example, development means infrastructure. We forget about other things because that is profitable for local elites and middle class. In Nepal today, the major investment would go to the road construction. We are hill, by and large hill, 60% hill and 17% mountain we have. Geographically, only we have 13+% plain land towards Indian side. So everyone see that, oh, unless we have road is major indicator of the development today in Nepal. Unless we have road, how could we do other development thing? And every local elite will have dozer. What is it called? Dozer, you understood, no? Bulldozer, dozer.
Earth-moving industry.
Yeah. And then, because it's very profitable for them, they convince even very grassroots people saying that, oh, if road comes, then everything will be all right. You'll have access to ambulance to go to the hospital, you'll have access to bus to take your children to the school. I think that is how they are convincing. But while doing so, couple of things are happening as far as this ecological justice are concerned. For example, once you try to use bulldozer in the hilly area, definitely water resource will be collapsed. Number one, these fragile rocks will be further fragile. That is how last 2 years back earthquake was very devastating in Nepal. Number three, it's hill, fragile rocks, you come with dozer and then daily deforestation due to flooding, due to what is it called, landslide every year during the monsoon season. And then what happens, this kind of natural beauty we had till recently, greenery at least in the hill, now it is like all like desert because of this landslide and then kind of modern stone we throw out of constructing this road. So I think this kind of development project tried to make as if it is disaster, and there are a couple of indicators out of that. As I told you, the poorest of the poor are the most sufferer out of this. They don't have, as I mentioned, water resource because it was the discussion earlier. It is there is the crisis of water resource because we by and large depend on the, at least in the hill area, with the kind of natural source of water resource. If you have forest and down there in the forest you find a kind of resource to drink water, and then this is the case. And we are having lot many rivers coming all the way from the Himalayas as well. And due to this kind of this dozering, road construction, etc., even that has impacted to kind of climate change in the Himalaya. This water melting also has something to do with this very thing, because we try to take this dozer up to Himalaya as well, and you could see kind of consequences. And then more than that, you see, even kind of development we try to impose, we also try to impose other couple of things. We try to defame this subsistence farming in a way so that no one, at least young, at least my father's generation still continue to do it because they enjoy kind of autonomy they have once they try to go for this subsistence farming. While we were imposed blockade by India government recently, Modi, in 2015, we had scarcity of fuel, we had scarcity of many things. And very many people from Kathmandu who were too much dependent on modern commodities, and that has to be all the way come from Indian side. Once India blockaded its border, then very many people had to leave the city and go back to the village, because village is still having autonomy, because hardly their autonomy could be encroached by market. So this very beauty of this autonomous farming has been defamed like anything in Nepal in the name of development. Yes, it is good because every developed countries try to shift from agrarian to industrial, and now they say that we are developed. But for that you have to have infrastructure, you have to have gradual way of shifting. But what we didn't create kind of next step. For example, no industrialization process is there, but we try to defame this kind of existing structure. That is why you see huge number of population of Nepal are migrated. And that is how I was thinking, Rajendra ji, you should not fly here and there abroad. You just go to neighborhood. If you are willing to control migration, what are your options? So these are the discussion maybe after this session.
Month of December I am in the Nepal.
Okay. Then maybe you'll have we'll have impact of your visit. I don't know. Let us discuss later on. But what I'm saying is we didn't prepare for kind of change we should have, but we try to defame kind of structure we had. That is how big number of people try to go to the city. Village is bad, being village is kind of inferiority, kind of notion has been strengthened in the village. That is why they want to shift to the urban area, and once they can't, that is very difficult for them to survive, then they try to go abroad for the labor migration. And huge number. I was just reading this remittance report. We are the first country where our GDP 31% of GDP comes all the way from the remittance. So yes, definitely India, China are the major remittance receiving countries in the world, but kind of size of GDP we have heavy weight out of this remittance nowadays. And you know, remittance is not kind of sustainable thing, and it is kind of very unsustainable, very temporary phenomenon. If someone stops door, for example, Qatar was having crisis, earlier Malaysia was having crisis, and then that crisis also affect us. So these are the things, and even what our development agenda or development experts are doing today. They try to convert a rural village to urban area without having any infrastructure. There is competition to declare Nagarpalika, municipality, out of kind of village. So if you see data today, I think more than 50% of Nepal's population live in urban area according to data. If you try to implement kind of municipality is as urban area. So, and then what is the politics behind? The middle class, they will be beneficiary because they have land, and if you convert from rural to urban area, then your land price grow. And then some land mafia will come and try to buy this land for the purpose of this housing, or what is it called, housing mafia. Yeah, that is why middle class are enjoying out of kind of development agenda we have, but the sufferer are who? The poorest of the poor, because land tax will be increased and they have no excuse. That is to be understood. In countries like ours, in Nepal, only 2011 data says that only 3% of Nepalese pay income tax. 3%, as if only 3% on, and that 3% is very minimal. And who were not avoided tax? Because we have huge amount of indirect tax, and indirect tax is the tax where there is no excuse for anybody not to pay. For example, you pay for while you buy biscuit, you have to pay tax. And land tax, for example, once you have land, there is no excuse. And who is avoiding tax? They are middle class, they are rich class, they are industrialists, they are these foreign direct investors. They are the major one to avoid tax. Poorest of the poor has no option to avoid tax. They have to pay tax. So that is how you see this urbanization policy, this development in the name of road. Everywhere you could see that there is neither ecological justice, because poorest of the poor will have no access to ecological things. Forests are being encroached. This water resources are being dyed due to kind of implementation we have, and also no social justice, because poorest of the poor are suffering because of land price raise, because of land tax raise, and there are many things. They have to pay tax for the municipality in a heavy way. They have to pay tax, housing tax, etc. But as I told you, for middle class and upper class, there are a lot many excuses so that they can manipulate institutions. At least in our part, I don't know about Hong Kong. So, kind of development practice we are doing in the name of development, in the name of this very larger project, it is neither ecologically sustainable nor ecological or humanitarian. From humanitarian way also, it is not kind of justifiable. That is what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to appreciate all the eminent persons here contributed their views on this development and ecology. I too agree with almost all of their views, but especially when we speak about development and ecology, we tend to forget one important area: the fisher folk and the sea. I am also from India, and the most southern part of India, Kerala, and see a harbour. Maybe Dr. Rajendra will be available of this Vizhinjam harbour. It is also a concept of development. But the poor fishermen and the fisher folk, they become the victim of such development. Almost kilometers they are going to fill. They are going to fill the sea. And thousands of families, they are going to become homeless. Their livelihood is a very big question. Of course, their job, their shelter, everything is a big question. And all the more, they are going to destroy the mountains. They are going to take the bricks by breaking up the mountains and going to fill the sea. The work is on the process. But the major groups like Adani and of course even the government is in support of that. So I would request, when we discuss certain concepts like ecology, let us also include the fisher folk, especially the sea. In the concept of development becomes most victimized one. So I would suggest people like Dr. Rajendra, when you speak or when you discuss to important forums, kindly consider this concept also. Thank you so much.
We are not only the worker. We are not only working at the university, but at the same time we are activists of the rural reconstruction in China. And François Hota is one of our best friends, and he always reminds us is the peasant agriculture will be a response able to be a step towards a new paradigm, a transition, or to challenge the financial capitalism nowadays. So actually, we have also the problem of land problem and also water problem, like Brazil and also India. But our senior in the early 20th century, they already said that capitalism actually is bring us to the end of the world. turbulence is not our hope. We should pursue an alternative. And alternative, at that moment, they have the experience of the rural reconstruction movement. And as far as I know, it also has that kind of movement in the Philippines and also Nepal. And there's two ways of rural reconstruction movement. And the first way it happens in the early 19th century. Because why we name it as a rural reconstruction? Because our rural are destroyed by the capitalism and by the industrial capitalism, and nowadays are destroyed by the financial capitalism. So we name it, or we also echo to our senior fellows in the early 20th centuries. And we now in China there's a dual system about the land, and we still have a more stable rural society because we have completed the land revolution in 1949. This is communist legacy, and then the slogan "Land to the tillers" is still powerful and also still very useful in nowadays. So you find that not only in Brazil and also in other countries, but China has already completed this main task of the Communist Party. However, we also have the land problem because nowadays many young people migrate to the city and then they don't stay in the countryside, and also we have only the elderly and the women. How can we rebuild our rural society in the 21st century? This is our main task. And but according to our tradition, we also have the communist tradition that the intellectuals should be integrated with the poor. That means the peasant and workers. And Mao Zedong has already mentioned that the educated youth of the whole country should be integrated with the masses of peasant and workers in order to become an unity. And but of course, during the Cultural Revolution, many young people were sent to the countryside. It's a kind of a top-down movement. However, in our nowadays, our rural reconstruction movement actually is based on the voluntary base. And so at the early beginnings, the 2000 years, and we intellectuals and some volunteers in China launched the rural reconstruction movement, and we focus on the people's livelihood, and also we help the peasant organize the cooperatives, and also we support the peasant organic agriculture, and then to build a bridge between the urban consumer and also the peasants. And we work for the 5 main areas. The first one is rural development, experiment, and peasant training programs. The second one is agroecology, community support agriculture, and ecological architecture. The third one is community college for peasant workers. The fourth one, organization and training for university students. The fifth one, traditional cultural diversity and local good governance. And in 2004, we set up James Yen Rural Reconstruction Institute. At that time, we all already organized many activities, how to mobilize students to work on the field, and also to organize the international forum. For example, we invite the Vinod to talk about the Indian people science movement in Kerala. And after that, we set up the Little Donkey Fund in Beijing suburb. And Yan Xiaohui can talk about this Little Donkey Fund.
小毛驴市民农园是在城市里边的一个，是开在北京市郊区的，在城市里边的一个农业社区。它主要针对的是年轻的农夫和城市里边的这些市民，所以在城市的郊区有这样一个农场。我们通过让年轻人学习如何耕种，让城市里边人了解食物的来源，了解食物耕作的方法，来接近大地，体会一种农业食物这样的生活方式。 通过这样子，我们就可以把城市里边的这些消费者，通过这种公平贸易、安全食物的方式，跟农村、跟乡村、跟农民生产食物的人连接在一起。那更重要的是，在这个过程中，因为他在城市里边这样的工作，就可以吸引年轻人在这里学习怎么种地，学习一些生态技术，然后他们就可以重新回到家乡去从事务农的工作，并且也把自己的农产品卖给这个城市里边的消费者。
好Xiaohui speak in Mandarin, so I help him to translate into English briefly. And the little donkey farm is set up in the Beijing suburb. And then they have two kinds of initiative projects. One is to teach the young people how to do farming, organic farming. And the second one is to teach the urban consumer also to do the farm work. And then they know that where the food come from, and then to understand the importance of food security. So through this kind of activities, let them to integrate with the rural communities. And another training program is also provided by Little Donkey Farm. They provide the natural farming for the young people. This is to teach how they can raise the pig. You see the pig? Yeah, it's very healthy, and then the environment is not smelly. So they provide this kind of training program for the interested groups, particularly the young people. And when they have opportunities to return to the countryside, they can know the know-how or the skill to raise the pig and also to do organic farming. And another organization is the rural Liangshu Ming Rural Reconstruction Center. The main task is to provide training program for university students. So they have opportunity to stay in the village committee to talk with the peasant and also to work with them. Unless that means they can understand the reality in the rural countryside. In the rural, because the majority of the population actually are living in the countryside, not in the city. And also those students also organize many cultural activities for the peasants, and that means through this kind of activities, these peasants, students, and even teachers can join together and to understand more what's happened or what the reality, and also to through the farming, through the cultural activities, they understand each other and then also to support each other. And now we have a new integrated project in Yongji rural community. This is the most well-known example of grassroots initiative of the new rural reconstruction movement in today China. And then it is composed of 3,865 peasant households from 43 villages in Puhan Town and Hanyang Town. It's in Shanxi province, it's North China. And then they initiate many projects like the mutual credit, ecological culture, agriculture, collective consumption and distribution, community service, and cultural activities, and among others. And this community actually is led by the Zheng Bing. She was a primary teacher, but she tried to organize the community join together. And then at the very beginning, she organized some dancing group. And then many women are interested and join together. And after that, they discuss more about the community matters, community affairs. That means they, through these cultural activities, they gradually understand more what happened in the community, and then to solve the problem. For example, like gambling, alcoholic in the community. So this is a very women leadership, or they recognize the women leadership in that community. And also they try to revive the traditional handloom. I think it's very quite popular in India. But in China, nowadays we also try to to identify the traditional wisdom of the peasant wisdom. For example, the land loom and also the paper cutting. So of course, that community also have the projects of soil conversion, how to convert the chemical agriculture into organic agriculture. They through the projects and also through their local activities to do the home visit and then to persuade and then to demonstrate how the organic agriculture is the best model for in the future. And that means that because that community is very well organized. So Lohiya Tongi Farm and the Liang Shuming Rural Reconstruction Center and also the Puhan community, that means the three sector now join work together. So nowadays they have the ecological skill training program, and then have the student training program, and also the community also fully supports our activities. So you find that nowadays is a kind of a best example that the young people actually can have opportunity in the rural society, not only in the city. So now it's still ongoing. And then the peasant also learn how to learn, not only the student learn the ecological agriculture and also the peasant, because for the last 20 years, we peasant also practice the chemical agriculture. So these two groups, peasant and also the student, also try to learn the agroecology or the organic agriculture. So they produce a lot of the organic food. You can find that on that picture. Fruit and also the bread is made from is a handmade and also is made by the local peasants.
关于这个养猪的技术，非常重要的就是。现在我们全世界这种养猪的方法，尤其是大规模的养猪的方式，最重要的两个这个危害，一个就是需要大量的消耗水，另外一个就是消耗完的水通过排放就会大量的污染水源。所以这个养殖最重要的问题就是它对于水资源的破坏和浪费。然后进而就破坏土地。那我们这种养猪的方式，就是让猪在一个温暖的床上生活，它不需要冲水，不需要水来冲洗，也不会有污染的排放。所以猪的粪便和尿液在这个床上长时间就是发酵以后，就会变成好的肥料，直接到地里边。所以这种技术。这种生态技术，我们在农场，然后把它集中的展示、研发、试验以后，通过这些学习的年轻人就带到农村去，在农村社区里边，组织农民来学习这种技术，来改进他们的养殖方法。这是我们做的工作。
And shall we supplement some information about the training program of the pig racing? Because the modern larger scale agriculture has problem because use a lot of water, and then after that the water are polluted. So now they try to provide this kind of the natural farming project. That means the pig actually live in the fragmented bed. So it's a very healthy, and then they don't generate any virus or the smell is not smelly. So they demonstrate this kind of organic skill, organic raising pig skill in the little talking farm, and that lets the peasant and also the student understand and learn that. And once they have the opportunity to return to the countryside and then to set up this kind of model, that means they can raise the pig in a very healthy way. And then if pigs live in a healthy and good environment, that means we human also can enjoy good food. But of course, for the Muslim, they can another way, economic way to raise cow. That means, but the main ideology, that means how can we provide good treatment to animal, and then that means it also good treatment to all humans. Okay. Oh, thank you very much.
So I will talk a little bit about another community experience. And just now, the example of the Beijing Little Donkey Farm is mainly a kind of training center for youths and for farmers so that they could do it in an ecological way. But then they also work a lot on linking the producers with the consumers. So they have been running national CSA conferences, and Xiaohui is one of the main organizers. And in that example, where you saw the women's handicrafts, that is in Shanxi, in the middle of China. There, the women started organizing, and then later on, they involved the men as well. And then they invited young people to come to their community. And the interesting thing is that they already went through the household responsibility contract system. That means in the early years of the reform period under Deng Xiaoping, there was this idea of dismantling the people's communes and then having individual households contract the land and also to produce on an individual basis. So that was the individualized production system implemented in the early 1980s. And the majority of households then got their land, but then they also found that they were in a state when they had to cater for their own needs for education, health, and then they still continued to pay agricultural taxes for for another decade before the government removed all the tariffs. So in that particular example, where Chui and Xiaohui have been there to do interviews with the people, to work with them, then they had to encounter the problems of individualized production by the families. So this individualization caused a lot of problems, of course, because then, for example, one household would be using doing it, agriculture organically, whereas if your neighbor is spraying all the pesticides, then it's a problem. And so then they started with a collective purchase of agricultural tools, of means of production, and then later on they experimented with collective selling of their products. So that is the example when it is done in a very voluntary way. They come together and then they try to work among themselves. And the interesting thing is, in their example, they have managed to cover not only the economic aspects, but also especially the cultural aspects of renewing the community bonds, the community relationships and the women are very good at that. And so you saw the lady, she was the primary school teacher, and so she was helping with the relationships. The example I'm now giving is one which is a very unique example. It is the last people's commune in all China. Because in the early 1980s, all people's communes were dismantled. Some reluctantly, because although maybe the majority of peasant households prefer to have their own piece of land that they can produce on it and use, and so they thought that they could profit a lot, much more than from a collective. Still, then there are communities where they would prefer to keep the old system. So in this place where it is called the Zhoujiazhuang, which is very near the Hebei, where it is maybe 1 or 2 hours by car from Beijing. So in this community, they had the people's commune, and then they had a lot of collective use of the land, collective planning. So when the government said in 1979, 1980, to say that, well, we should do away with all the people's communes, they said, but we do not want to dismantle the People's Commune because we feel that from the collective, we actually benefit a lot. And so then they signed a petition, they called on they had their own assembly for discussion and debate, and eventually they decided that they would want to keep the People's Commune. But at that time, it was a difficult option. It was a difficult decision because there's the order from the government that you all should be dismantled. But then they say, no, we want to keep the People's Commune. So then they try to ask the government, they try to look for wording in the different official documents. And of course, in the official documents, you have the rhetoric, like we should respect the people's wish, etc. So then they took some abstract statements from the government that say people's wish should be respected. So then they say, then our wish should be respected. We want to keep the People's Commune. So then they had this debate with the officials, and then they said, if the whole idea of letting people go for the household farming is to increase production, to increase productivity. But if we as a collective can keep this productivity and we can do better than the others, then can we keep our People's Commune? So the officials say, okay, we give you 1 year and then we will see. And after 1 year, they demonstrated they are really very strong. And so they were allowed to keep the People's Commune, although they had to change the name. So they had to change the name to cooperative. So they are called a cooperative, but actually, essentially, they are keeping the People's Commune. But interestingly, during the Cultural Revolution itself, during the 10 years, the People's Commune of this leadership didn't function. So it was the People's Commune during the Cultural Revolution that didn't function, that was restored and regenerated by the peasants themselves on their own wish against the current. They were doing this against the grain. So by 1982-83, when the government said, okay, you can have your way, then they started to do a very good planning. So this community, they have about 4,500 households, about 13,000 population. So it is easily manageable on a scale which is big enough for good planning. But then they divide it into 10 production brigades. So each brigade will have about 150 households. And that is also good for communication and management. So I wouldn't go into the details, but then the interesting thing about this community is that as soon as they had the right for their own organization, keeping the institution of the People's Commune, then they decided to cater for the needs of the members in terms of housing, in terms of education, in terms of health, but of course arranging the production. So what they did was they started to have a 10-year plan to build a nice house for every member, and then for each member, then every family had the same size of the plot. Whether you're a cadre or the poorest member, you can have the same plot of land, and they have the construction brigade from the commune to help build it. So in China now, in the urban places, you see that the housing is a difficult problem. But then in this particular community, the per capita housing that they have is 65 square meters. 65 square meters per person. And it is the same for the whole commune. And they also started to give education allowance so that they could have free education, whereas in the other rural areas, education was not free. So it was getting more and more difficult for the rural families to send their children to university. And then they also had the medical scheme. So then they would be covering the medical things. So it has remained on a very low profile because it's the only one, and then they could just survive in the crevice, but then they have kept it until today. And up to now, well, their main production is on agriculture. They had some industries in between the 1990s and the 2000s, but then after the 2008 economic crisis all over the world, so they also suffered. So the industries were mostly closed down. But still they could return to the agriculture because they had the commune-owned land, and so they could plan. So they would be first growing food for their own needs first. So they would have the soya beans, the millet, the grain for their own consumption. And then they would be growing things with seed companies, growing good wheat, so that they could sell for a good price. And they had a very good irrigation system, and because they could invest in it collectively. And they actually have a public fund. For the public fund, it's a collective fund, so it is a risk fund, and they also pay, every year they pay $30 million, 30 million yuan, which is 3,000 euros. 30 million, 3 million euros for the social welfare of all the members, including taking care of the elderly, of the handicapped, of those that are widowed or orphaned. So then they pay special attention to catering for the needs of the marginalized, of the weakest sector of the community. And they also have the fund for emergencies, etc. So last year, the public fund is 600 million yuan, which is 100 million US dollars for a community, which is for a people's commune, which is 15,000 population. The land area of this place is 12 square kilometers. 12 square kilometers of land. Population 13,000, and the families is 4,500 families.
They have some they have some value addition industries, food processing industries.
Well, they had the industries which is to manufacture the valves, the pipes, the valves. But then, and that accounted for about 70% of the commune's income. But after 2010, with the economic crisis around the world, and also with a lot of industries going bankrupt in China, they also closed most of their industries. But then they started with ecotourism, and then they also had a dairy farm. And recently, because in China, a lot of capital started to go into the finance sector. For them, they didn't really go into finance speculation, but then they started to build residential blocks for the families. And then for the residential blocks, then they also had the commercial stores, so they could get the rent from the commercial stores. So basically, they still count on agriculture to cater for the needs. But one other interesting thing about the commune is that any commune member can choose to have a job in the commune. If the member asks for a job, the commune has to give the job to the member. But then you are also free to take your own job. But of course, because this is mostly agricultural jobs, the young people would prefer to go to do something else. So the people who ask for the job in the commune are mostly the elderly. It's mostly the elderly. This is only the only people's commune existing in China, the last one, because people's commune is on the township level. It's not at the village level. So it is the last one and the only one. But then in the last 30, 40 years, it has continued to exist, and with the central planning, but then with decentralized production by the 10 production brigades. So to conclude, actually there are many very interesting community experiences in China, and of course you do not see them being reported in the mass media in the West or even in China itself. But these are the community experiences which tell us which tell us all the possibilities for community governance of the commons. And in different places, they have their specificity, and so they may not be replicated so easily. But then we see this will and this wish to organize among themselves so that they could be doing things not on an individual basis, but on a community basis. And we hope that we could be learning also from experiences from India and Nepal and Japan, where we have been listening to all these examples. Thank you.
Now I would like to introduce the Wiki Peace Women Project. I regard the Wiki Peace Women Project to create a website. You see this website, and then documenting the women's stories about their works in and fields of human security, conflict resolution, ecological security, environmental justice, health, education, and legislation, among others. We are doing this primarily through the Wiki Peace Women website to document the stories. The project is also expanding the network by connecting peace women across different backgrounds and languages. You can see our website have the language English, simplified Chinese, traditional Chinese, Espanol, Francis, Portuguese, Dutch, and the Arabic language. All are now all the other languages are under construction, and then all this international community can break through the boundaries of the countries, region, and the ocean. And then you can, from the internet, you can see that this community can see the invisible women's work, peace work can visible. And then they are not alone and supported by the others, by the whole, the mother of the earth, the people. So this Peace Women project is very important to our project. All the project team is now based on the Hong Kong team, and our Professor Lau is our leader, and then Lau Qinchi is a technician, and then Jin Peiyun is a Chinese website, and then George Lee is our English website. All these websites is done by us, done by our whole team, and this is also to continue to collect and connect the women's work through this website, and that this work can continue and to share the experience and their struggles and the conflict under many very worse conditions, and they are not alone, and we can support them.
Hello everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and talk a little bit about the, probably more on the technical background for the two websites that we are hosting. The Global University for Sustainability website, and also the Wiki Peace Women website. Well, you can see the site here for the Wiki Peace, for the Global University website, and again, well, the project, actually the two projects started about in 2015, and Qinchi approached me and said, well, can we build two websites and with different objectives? Well, the objectives I'm not going to elaborate much, but for the Global University, we would be talking, we will be trying to build a network of to network to do more networking, and also to consolidate the experiences and knowledge of various of people from various backgrounds, and hopefully we can further that to consolidate more and more in terms of theory and also from experiences. And the other one is on the Wiki Peace Women, which Lai Seong has discussed just now. And over 3 years, we have managed to build up the two websites. And a little bit more on the background from my side. It's I work on as in the information technology area until my retirement, and part of the objective of bringing these two websites is to take leverage on the modern technology which we are living in this world, and try to make use of that technology for the people, for the general people, rather than just by those who benefited from in the commercial world, and by when we talk about globalization, we often talk about the effect of capitalists and the transnational companies making use of the technology and so on. And so it is probably an opportunity for the general people to build something of their own based on this modern technology. And from there, we hope to develop a new paradigm based on theory and analysis, and also hopefully increasingly the experiences of various peoples trying to build a new paradigm of the commons. But we do face a lot of limitations. For example, we don't have any funding or any official funding. So most of them are by volunteer work. And we started with a small team. We are still quite a small team, mostly from Hong Kong, but we are expanding, hopefully. And we started with very limited hardware, which I just went out and I bought some hardware and started the service. And we got some volunteers to provide a commercial site where we can host these two websites ourselves. I tried to start looking for free software. And free software is actually one development over the past maybe 20 years or more. And it has grown into a very strong movement of open and free software. And this, in fact, we have our websites have benefited a lot from it. We are running on after some few months of research and experimenting, we settled on using WordPress, which is used by probably over 70% of the world's websites, and it is free. We also run it on Apache, which is the web server, which is also a free project, and it's also run by a big majority of the world's web servers. So we are not, in that sense, we are not in the minority, but we are more of the in the majority of the users in this free software area. And this free software actually has got some very interesting development, starting with, maybe you have heard about Linux, and then the web servers, the Firefox, and even the Chrome browsers, and bit by bit they are overtaking the influence of Windows and some other very strong commercial entities, and most of them are open, at least free to use, or more for they are open source in the sense that They even open up their source so that people can improve on the source, and so it is a global effort in that sense to improve on the system, on this kind of software. And there's a huge community behind these. And of course, we as users are riding on this, and we hope to build this one and use this modern technology for the benefit of the general people. So I'm not going to go too much into the websites themselves. Just to highlight a few features of it, and especially with just now when Gustave talked about the Intercoll project and the website project. It appears that we are probably going in very similar directions. And for example, we now have multiple language sites within our websites. We have English as the prime media site for international sharing of knowledge. We also have Chinese, which are with a pretty strong background from the Hong Kong and Chinese community from our team. We also are trying to expand into other languages like French, and recently we are having some volunteers from the Spanish friends, and they are also recommending some changes to the system, and we are hopefully trying to expand more in terms of the experiences of the social movements. We hope we can consolidate and add more of those experiences into our websites. The other areas we will be we rely more on information gathering, which Kinchi has been doing a very good job, and we have a small team of people to try to put those information onto the website, and then so in a way we are building. Looking back over the last 3 years, we have built quite a good websites, and I hope that kind of experience can be used as for other people, other communities trying to build their websites. I mean, it doesn't take really too much. After some people have cleared the road, other people can follow the example and start to build their own websites, and more importantly to link together these websites so that we have where you can consolidate all our experiences, and that's what we hope we can do in the near future. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you again for attending this session. We have had 16 speakers in this session, and this is a very good space for exchange. And we all have our own different experiences, and we encounter our the problems and locally, and yet there is something general that to these experiences, because we face a world with this neoliberalist development paradigms. And so the Global University for Sustainability was inaugurated in the Tunis World Social Forum a few years ago, and in the last 4 years, we have been able to facilitate exchanges among the different movements, among thinkers. And so we would like to invite you to visit the websites, and also to try to send us articles, and so that we could play a better role in facilitating the dialogues. And as for the Wikipeace Women project that Aoyuan Lai Sangh has introduced to us, we are trying to collect millions of stories of women working for peace, against violence. And so please also visit the website, and also send us the nominations of women who are working so much in different areas of peace work. So thank you again for coming.